All right, good morning. So I've prepared a presentation to kind of take us through a lot of the things that we think we know. You know, that's what I always like to say is the future is approaching so quickly, it's hard for us now to really get our arms around it, although I'm going to try and do that for you today. Top of mind because, you know, the name of this conference is CloudEXPO and Things Expo, but cloud hasn't even really happened yet. You know, in the cave painting days of all this technology, even though this has been going on for several decades now, the internet's 25 plus years old, this is still very early days, and so the maturity part is still coming, and the growth part is still coming. As part of this issue with growth is complexity. So many different devices, so many different protocols. Things like Internet of Things isn't going to work on existing internet technology because there's just going to be so many of them, and they're all going to be throwing off data 24/7 that we're supposed to do something about and need to do something about because that's business opportunity. In my analysis, I discovered that we're going to have a significant challenge with this. I'm going to try to kind of unbox that, give you my perspective on Internet of Things, and answer the question, is it strategic to the enterprise, or is this just another tactical, incremental improvement? I have a point of view. You will have yours as well, but we'll explore this together this morning. My slide is not advancing here. Here we go. So we live in exponential times, and that exponential curve has been going on since we've had machines, since before the Industrial Revolution, but it was relatively slow until recently. We're high now in terms of the sheer amount of technology, the number of connections and endpoints that we have, the number of applications. Applications have just exploded, especially with mobile devices. We have over 2 million of them. And we're going to need a lot more apps to take advantage of the Internet of Things. So how do we ride that curve? That's one of the biggest challenges. I work primarily with CIOs and CTOs in the Fortune 500 and Global 2000. And the big question is, how do you ride that curve? How do we absorb? This is the real challenge. And the Internet of Things is probably the biggest challenge that we have for reasons that we'll explore here. So the vision, of course, with this is everything that can be connected will be connected. And there's all sorts of data out there. I pulled a relatively random one here, but this is one of the higher estimates, 50 billion objects by 2020. And by 2030, it'll be many orders of magnitude greater than that. I was talking with a CTO of a major sporting goods company that I can't name. They're going to be putting embedded objects into all of their clothing, everything that they make, so that you'll be able to monitor it, understand whether it needs to be washed or how old it is or where it is. You can't lose things anymore. It's going to be a great future. But that means every non-trivial device that we have is going to be connected, and even some trivial ones too, right? Everything in our workplaces, in our homes, right? And that means all of your customers too, right? This is a fantastic way to hold your customers close and provide value to them and get information from them around the clock, right? And all their devices. And so the value chain is moving from we had this kind of periodic engagement with our customers, whether those are internal stakeholders or external ones. And now we're going to have constant engagement. And that's a real challenge. Roger was talking about we're going to need next generation analytics. We're going to need to think about how do we literally layer in business models in almost real time as we spot opportunities. Artificial intelligence will be required to do this because we simply can't manage the number of combinations and permutations, right? So a lot of this is, this is kind of the giving up control thing I've been talking a lot about lately. So the Internet of Things is also the Internet of Customers. That's a really important thing. This is where the people come back in. Internet of Things isn't just about things. It's about people too, and that's connecting relationships in scale. We're all going to have our little personal ecosystems that we have to manage, and our businesses will have much bigger ones. Because it's not only the things that are connected inside our enterprise, but it's everything that is connected within our customers. And there's going to be a big arms race, just like there was with the early internet. Who is going to build the first e-commerce stores? Well, who's going to create the first Internet of Things hubs that will allow us to manage all of these things? That's going to be the next big arms race. So the motivation for Internet of Things is this opportunity, right? 2.5 billion connected people, each one of them with thousands and soon tens of thousands of connected devices. What will you do with this opportunity? The internet was amazing because it connected everyone in humanity for the first time in history. And most organizations are still trying to think of what can I do with that? Of course, startups do this all the time. They obsess about what can I do with this historic opportunity? Well, the Internet of Things is that next opportunity. And most things aren't connected yet, right? So we're in the early days. This is This is, this is what they call a greenfield opportunity, right? And so first mover advantage is really important on the internet. If you're trying to understand network effects, well, we'll talk about that in just a second. So we've learned that digitally networked organizations get outsized benefits. This is some McKinsey data, but it shows that organizations that are well connected internally and externally have significantly higher revenue and profit because they can take advantage of all those more opportunity inside those endpoints, right? So if we look at the major types of IoT, right, we all have these little trees that we have to build. We need the infrastructure to make this happen, right? So that's the technology at the bottom, everything from having a lot more connectivity, right? The thing I used to, and I still see this in organizations, high-def video is supposed to replace all the other ways that we were supposed to engage with each other. But most companies, when they started rolling out things like Skype, discovered that when you have everyone doing HD video all day long, that you have to completely overhaul your infrastructure. Same thing with IoT. There's going to be a flood of data as we start connecting all of these objects and these devices. And we're going to have to build that connectivity, build that bandwidth and that infrastructure, right? And also all the sensing and analytics and capabilities for that. And then the end user applications. That's going to be the real challenge for us to imagine everything that we can do, right? That's the biggest part of the tree, by the way, is this opportunity. Is saying, how can we take the devices we're making and the devices that we're acquiring and our partners' devices and connect them into some sort of solution that has benefit for our customers. And then we have to build those applications and we have to deploy them, right? And you can begin to see that the permutation problem is here again. And so we've already had this issue several times in our industry, right? And so things like APIs have been really important, saying we can't possibly build all those solutions. But if we can somehow get in the middle, we build a part of this tree here and be in the middle of it, then we can open that data up and let others innovate on top of it, right? And that seems to be a very successful model. Again, this is one of the ways that you can ride that exponential curve. That's really a challenge. So it's clear now that the Internet of Things will run our cities, run our businesses, and our homes. And I'm saying literally, that they will be, for the first time, fully instrumented, right? This is a quantified enterprise, and that too much data to manage, right? So this, Peter Drucker famously said, you can't manage what you aren't measuring. Well, for the first time ever, we'll be able to measure almost everything about our businesses or about our homes or about our lives, whatever that is. But we're gonna need a lot more help to do that management. And this is what, what Roger was talking about, why artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to be such a key component to this, right? I'm staging this up because we're going to identify some challenges here that we need to solve. I think the solutions are beginning to emerge. So I said we'd talk about network effects. I still see 25 years into the web that a lot of people still don't understand. That's the magic. That's what makes networks so powerful, right? And it was seen from the outset. Bob Metcalfe, the guy that invented Ethernet, said, hey, I get it. The value of a network grows exponentially by its size, right? And so things like email had the network effect. At some point, enough people had an email address that you simply had to have one day. For those of you who went through that period in the 90s, one day you didn't need an email address, and the next day you decided, I gotta have one, because I can reach so many people. So the definition is anything that has value, the more that other people have it too. And again, the value of a network is exponential to its size. And the Internet of Things is going to expand our networks 2 or 3 orders of magnitude here in a short order, right? A lot more value is going to come pouring out of those devices, and we can take advantage of it. So whoever can build the network effect earliest and first will have a significant advantage. This is why you look at Amazon Web Services, right? They have 14 times the cloud workloads of their next 10 competitors combined, right? And that's Gartner data from last year. Because they started about 4 years earlier than everybody else, right? They built their network effect and they built their ecosystem and the number of people using their servers. And the same thing's gonna happen with IoT, right? And so when you think strategically, you think about this. It's getting started early enough to really make a difference is very important. So this is a force multiplier. We want to get to the point where right now the value of the devices is still often less than the cost of the devices, right? Like I really want Nest thermostats, but I have 4 thermostats in my house, and I just don't feel like spending $1,200 to upgrade those thermostats, even though there's some value to be had. But when that cost drops down to, hey, it's a no-brainer. and the cost of all technology drops to zero, that's when the network effects are going to have so much more value. So this is another lesson that we've learned. If we look at digital strategy, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we look at where's the value, who is creating the most value when using the network, right? And putting things on the network, offering services on the internet. Technology creators and network operators, especially orchestrators, have a lot higher value in the marketplace because they create much higher value. In other words, a organization can only do so much by creating a technology in and of itself. If it can somehow connect everyone else's technology, it can do something much bigger than it can ever do by itself, right? So you can look at, for example, Amazon is a network orchestrator to a great degree. If you look at its 50 different types of cloud services, you can see that, all of the different partners that they have had, all those technology partners that they've assembled, and then orchestrate and offer to you in a very easy to use, very elastic, very scalable form, right? And the Internet of Things is going to create the next generation of network orchestrators. We don't know who they're going to be. Some of them are probably here at this show. But, or it could be you. But this is the opportunity. We're still in early enough days that that opportunity can be seized. It's a great potential. So IoT is different in several ways than previous connected strategy. We're finally getting enough of the devices. We're not critical mass, I would say. We know that a year or two of devices, and for the cost to come down so that it's a no-brainer. People just are going to get it. Standardization is getting better, although security is an issue. But the protocols and hubs, Z-Wave and Zigbee and all of those types of things are going to allow us finally to connect enough of those devices, although the challenge is still people don't have enough of those in their offices and homes yet, although more and more routers are getting that. That will happen. But it's this rich sensor data, right? This structured and unstructured knowledge that pours off of these devices is not information overload, right? This is the Clay Shirky thing. What we have to do is we want all of that data and we have to take advantage of it. That's really exciting. And then the fact that there's such small, low-power devices that are coming. I'll give you a preview of some of the really amazing things. But now the cost of a low-energy Bluetooth sensor and the size of it, you can get a Bluetooth sensor on a chip with a battery that lasts 10 years for a pretty low cost point. And it's going to drop to under $1 relatively soon. And then it'll drop under 10 cents. And then it will drop under a penny. That's when everything will get connected, right? I'm super excited about the possibilities, right? But that's what's different, is this, that Moore's Law is going to make amazing things happen and allow us to actually instrument everything. And then wearables and embeddables and all of that is coming too. Smart everything, right? So the market size estimates, Internet of Things is still tiny in terms of market size, but it's going to be enormous. Because it's existed actually for quite some time in the industrial world, so we have some data on how valuable it is, or it could be. Right, so all airplanes are vast Internet of Things machines with all sorts of instrumented things that beam data. You've probably seen these things in the news. But this is a great thing. Flexera did some analysis and trying to figure out how do we make the most of this. It's simplify, differentiate, drive revenue, figure out how to layer in business models with this. You need to provide enough value out of the box, but then the value add comes later. With a variety of services that you can come up with, again, you'll have machines that will most likely help you figure this out in near real time. Make recommendations to your users going, here's some things we can do for you that would be very valuable. Do you want them? And they can adopt them. And protecting your IP is going to be very important. This is one of the things we learned about the first generation of the web, is that everything's out there for everyone to see. You have a great idea, someone's going to copy it or try another variation of it in very short order, right? So that's one of the other issues that's going to be with, trying to protect. Being first often doesn't mean being the winner in that regard. So there's two sides of the coin with IoT. There's value creation, right? So that's taking the customer needs and an offering and figuring out what data you're going to be creating. Information convergence, especially. The lesson that we learned, from the Web 2.0 era, that my data is better when it's with your data. So the value of a connected thermostat, for example, is that you can say, well, how often is my thermostat come on? How long does it stay on? And if I can combine it with my power meter data, and then I want to see how my neighbors are doing, right? Suddenly I get a baseline. I understand how I'm doing. Am I wasting energy? Could I be doing a lot better? Can I optimize those settings? Can you save me a couple $100s a year? That's a recommendation you can actually make and should make. That's that value add, saying, hey, if you want to hand us control of that thermostat and give us some guidelines, we can save you X amount of dollars per year. Right? That's the value creation piece. But that can't happen without that value capture. And for the first time, again, being able to get a broad sense of what's really going on in the real world, having that data in real time, and then being able to do the value creation piece. And that's that tight feedback loop. The tighter the feedback loop, the more likely you're going to be the winner when it comes to that. So I do a lot of business cases for digital strategy, trying to figure out, all right, if we do this, what are we going to get? And I like this. It's a very conservative IoT business case. What if Internet of Things delivered a 1% improvement? But it's going to be everywhere. So what is that going to look like, right? I mean, look at different industries, aviation, power. Healthcare is going to be one of the biggest ones of all, if you ask me. We're talking major savings, even if you're just this very conservative 1% improvement in what we do, right? In terms of having better data, be able to make better decisions, right? And so it's, in my estimate, it's going to be considerably more than 1%. But just this alone will justify the investment. Right, you're looking for the IoT business case. You can say, well, let's just take the most conservative business case we can and look at the value that we're going to get. And so I think that's very encouraging. So let's actually look at some Internet of Things first before I make a problem statement to you, although you can probably guess, some of you will probably guess what that problem statement is. Here's 12 unusual key examples. These are not ones, I try to select things you probably haven't heard of. And it's the last one that's going to kind of show you where this is all headed that's going to be interesting. So we all heard about, we all know about Fitbits and Nests and so on. Delphi, the world's largest car parts manufacturer, makes the Delphi Connect. And again, the advantage of this is they're lower down in the ecosystem. They're trying to figure out, how do I get connected in more things than I would be if I'm just an individual car manufacturer, if I'm just a Ford, for example. Ford now has a whole developer network for their IoT division. Delphi Connect is a way for them, because they make parts for many different car manufacturers, a way for them to get embedded broader in the ecosystem. The Sensei Mother, it's a head of a family of small connected sensors. They do a variety of things. I like the kind of personification there in terms of they're trying to make your life more pleasurable, right? So give you data, say, help you wake up in the morning, help you do all these different things in your life, and make it a pleasing experience. And you can manage that whole thing through your smartphone. The Track Dot. I actually just moved on to the next version of this. This allows you to turn any piece of luggage that you have into an IoT device, and then you can track it. I travel a lot internationally, and I throw that Track Dot into my bag, and I know when I land if I have it or not. If I need to go straight to the airline counter and fill out the claim form so I can get about my way, I can see it still in Cleveland, right? It works anywhere in the world in 200 different networks. I think I pay $40 a year for the data service. Very, very useful. I love my Track Dot, and I have used it multiple times so my luggage doesn't show up. Well, if someone swiped my luggage, I'd also be able to go find them. Skybell, smart Wi-Fi doorbell. There's so many of these things now. Allows you to see, you can be anywhere in the house or anywhere in the world and see who's at the door. You can talk to them. So someone comes up, and it was somebody you actually wanted to talk to. It doesn't matter where you are. You can still talk to them and engage with them. And some versions of these things will actually let you unlock the door as well, right? And let people in, like service personnel. Smart ice cubes, again, showing how very trivial objects are going to be connected, right? It allows you to do things like monitor your drinking. That's the use case it's actually designed for, right? But it just gives you a sense there that people are trying to obsessively figure out, how do I connect everything, whether we really should or not. But in 10 years, everything will be connected. It won't even be remarkable in the slightest, right? There's a variety of these different devices. I have a whole stack of them on my desk back in my office. This one's called Beacon. These are little tags. One thing I almost consistently can't figure out where I put is my wallet. And I like this one because it's small enough to insert in your wallet and then be able to find it very quickly with your phone. I even have the app set up so it's got a little gate. When I'm farther than 30 feet away from my wallet, it tells me. My phone beeps going, hey, you're out of range of your wallet. You probably don't want to do that, right? So I love this. Now the new ones are going to have GPS and they'll work anywhere in the world. Right now you kind of have to be within Bluetooth range for some of these, right? But all that's going to get better. Smart diapers. I just had twins 14 months ago, so this is actually very relevant for me. But disposable digital diapers, right? Those are, and again, what's interesting is these all sound strange to us, but they won't pretty soon. Pretty soon they'll be like, hey, that one's not connected. It's not useful to me. Because I want to know instantly when I need to change the baby's diaper, and I don't want to keep checking. Having twins recently, I understand that you do that all the time. And pediatricians can even use it to track a baby's health. Smart diabetes monitors. There's so many of these now, too. This is the health tech revolution, where all of our health devices are, I work with a number of healthcare organizations, and all they want to do is create electronic health records that have all this data. So you go visit them, they can see everything about how you've been living your life, how's it going. They can even predictively, this is their dream, predictively tell you, hey, we can see things kind of going south coming from all these different pieces of data. Here's some things you could change in your life to really improve it and be able to head off a health crisis. That is the dream. Preventative medicine is so much more powerful than curative medicine. And this is what's going to be happening in a big way. Quirky smart propane tank. Right? This is very useful for me. I'm also on Propane. A lot of these are self-interested IoT examples, by the way. Smart sprinkler control system. Also like this one, although in the East Coast we don't need it so much. On the West Coast, I used to live in Las Vegas. Your lawn will die if you miss watering in Las Vegas. Putting aside the question of whether you should be watering at all in that kind of climate, this allows you, again, to have all that information. And when the cost comes under the value point, right? That's the issue right now is a lot of these IoT devices, when I look at the price for this, I go, I wouldn't buy that, it's too expensive. But pretty soon, it'll just be, table stakes. Every sprinkler system will have these types of things in there. These I've actually seen around. I was just in Europe last week in Paris giving some talks, and they're all smart over there anyway, right? So when the garbage can fills up, someone knows to come running over and empty it, right? There's no overflowing cans. And they also don't have to then visit all these cans to see, my hero might as well change the bag and create a lot of extra work and waste. They only go and empty these things when they're near full. And they don't have to visit otherwise. Or if something's happened to it, right? Someone knocks it over. I know that too. They know to go fix it. These are the types of things we can do. Let's be a no-brainer. But this is the one that I can't decide if I find it interesting or very disturbing. So this is smart dust. It's a real thing. There's a picture of it there. See how tiny it is? It almost fits into one of the ridges in your fingerprints, right? And they can get these things to run two ways. Like RFID, you can transmit power to it. It can run off of Bluetooth low energy. That's how low power a device it is. Just like the smart contacts are coming, they're going to be powered by Bluetooth on your phone. They require so little energy, they can live off that tiny trickle of radio frequency energy. And they can have temperature, humidity, location. There's plans to do video and audio. Imagine the end of crime as one of the use cases for this, because they create a device that records the last 24 hours in a continuous loop, right? It just has just enough data, but only a camera facing in one direction. But if you have millions of these things in a room, you just take a pinch. You have to get a warrant to unlock the video stream, right? And then you can see who committed the crime in every angle, right? Those are the types of scenarios. Now, I find that fairly disturbing, but that's going to happen, right? So when I mean everything's going to be connected, everything's going to be connected. And again, the data implications are significant. It used to be, there's been a vision for a while. Smart dust was actually designed before IoT. And now they're going, but we don't even have to pinch the dust anymore. We can just talk to it, right? Because it's going to be connected now. We now have the technology and we have the protocols and all of that. And we don't have to worry about power. We can keep these powered for a very long time. Maybe even using the frequencies already traveling through the air, right? So you can see how this is the whole singularity conversation we've been talking about, where the digital world and the real world are kind of converging, right? So we have this existential IoT challenge in my mind. Now that I've framed this up, now that you've seen some examples close up, now that I've kind of explained the industry that by 2020, 50 billion devices is nothing. 2020 is around the corner. That's less than half a decade away. What are we going to do 10 years from now, right? What do we do in things like smart dust? Smart dust is probably only one of several experiments that are heading towards reality relatively soon. So it's a proliferation issue, right? How can we possibly interact with, monitor, and control all of these devices? Right, sure, artificial intelligence will help us with some of them, but how does it know what we really want to do? Right, how do we, directively, how do we say, I still want to interact with a lot of these things, but we'll show some examples here, how we have to deal with this, what I call the engagement paradox. We're seeing the engagement paradox happening across the digital universe right now because there's too many apps, too many channels, too many communications channels. So to paraphrase the big engagement paradox in the IoT world, the more IoT devices that we have, the less they'll be used by us anyway, right? Because every time you add a new device, that's another thing that you have to learn. It's another app you have to load, right? It's another thing you have to remember to do. And it's another thing you have to have enough time to do. And every time you add one, you have less to do it with all the other ones and this new one that you just added, right? And so the more that we have, the less that they'll be in demand because we have finite attention and bandwidth. So we have to solve that problem, right? If we really want to take advantage of this, otherwise we have all these devices and we're not going to be able to get the value out of them that we could, right? So how do we make them more accessible? How do we more easily monitor them and control them en masse? How do we orchestrate that? So that's one of the reasons I threw in that network orchestrator slide. Well, how do we do that? So can we reduce the friction of engaging in every sense of the word with IoT devices to as close to zero as possible? That's one of my very favorite things about technology is almost everything drops to zero, right? The cost of technology, the latency, the limits on the ceilings of scale, all tend to drop towards zero, right? But we're going to have to solve that. We're going to have to figure out how to do the same thing with IoT. So we're starting to get some indications about how this might work, right? One of the more interesting ones was what Facebook is doing. Because they have to deal with engagement with about 2 billion people right now. All generating data, uploading billions of photos a day, billions of photos a day. They're starting to understand, well, how do I enable more engagement given that people are already spending 45 minutes a day on average in Facebook around the world? That's an amazing number, right? It's higher in some countries, lower in others, but that's the average, right? They want, obviously, to be able to do more. They have the exact same problem that I just described in their world that we also have here in the IoT world. And so they launched this messenger platform that says, okay, Messenger, of course, is their real-time chat service. But they realize that you are not going to be able to, you're not just going to want to chat with other people that you know. You're going to want to be able to chat with machines that can do useful things for you. And so they announced Messenger bots. And the bot conversation is super hot right now in Silicon Valley if you've been hanging out there. And so this is where their initial focus is. These are little intelligent agents that can do things for you if you talk to them in just regular language, right? They have natural language processing. We'll look at the architecture of chatbots in just a moment. You can see alerts, of course. You're going to want to know things. The bot will tap you on the shoulder through Facebook Messenger and tell you what you want to know. Oh, your flight is late, right? So you can ask ask your United Airlines chatbot to tell you that, right? Search and input. And you want to find things. That's one of the most important use cases in the digital world. There's so much stuff out there. Could you find me the thing that I need, right? And the bot will go off and do it for you without you having to spend all the time trying to do it. You can get help with things. That's another thing we want very often in the digital world. We just want some help. And you can ask someone who will go figure out how to do it. And that someone is a machine, right? Is an agent, an intelligent agent. And then booking. And you see that's the most sophisticated model where now you're going to talk about committing real money. You're going to have a machine go off for you and actually spend money for you to do something, right? Get tickets or for a show, plan a trip perhaps. That's also very high value. In general, the more sophisticated the bot is, the more value it can provide to you, the more value that it has as a service, right? And we see the same thing as in Apple, which is kind of now, they're more directly connecting these two worlds that we just talked about. They have something called HomeKit, which I've been trying to get to work. It's not perfect yet. But you can see I have underlined a sentence in their description of HomeKit, in that they're going to allow you to use the smart agent on your phone. On Apple's world, that's Siri, right? Might be something else if you're using another device. And be able to do interesting things like this. Hey Siri, please turn on the lights at home, set the thermostat to 72 degrees, and start my car with the AC on. It's a hot day, right? And that right there, in 10 seconds, turns engagement with what would otherwise be 3 different Internet of Things applications and several dozen taps, meaning that not likely that you would do that. It would be much less likely that you would do that, and you would just be able to say, use a very frictionless voice interaction to make that possible. So this is likely to be, this is a simple model here of what it could do. You should be able to do more sophisticated things like, hey, Siri, I think my thermostat isn't working. Could you go look on Angie's list, find somebody that you think that I would like, and have them fix that, and let them in on the door, using the doorbell system? Those are the types of support applications that are going to be fantastic if we can enable them, right? And they're coming. No doubt, all of that is absolutely coming. So this is one possible and better future for Internet of Things engagement, digital engagement in general, right? And so we might actually have Internet of Things that's usable in scale, right? We'll be able to use a lot more of these devices. Our customers will be able to do a lot more with them. They're more likely to use them, more likely to get value from them, and more likely to be able to take advantage of the many scenarios that we can make possible that would be otherwise too complicated if we make them use all these disconnected apps and try and fiddle on their little screens while they're busy, while they're driving, while they're otherwise engaged, right? And so personal digital agents are a big thing. Siri, Cortana, Alexa, the Amazon Echo kind of showed what's possible. The Echo could do amazing things. I don't know how many of you here have actually used it. But this provides us with frictionless voice user interfaces, right? The work shifts from do it yourself, which is not the way really we want to do things, to do it for you. And that's the difference. That's the force multiplier. That's the leverage that'll really allow us to get the full range of possibilities out of the Internet of Things. More productivity, more high leverage. And of course, that's going to spread to the next big user experience revolution. Now those big bulky headsets you see now, think about what Moore's law is going to do to them in the next few years. By 2020, they're going to be almost as small and invisible as my glasses here, right? You won't even know that I'm using it unless you're looking closely, right? And then that's when those interfaces will come along, and we'll be able to instantly step into a virtual world and be able to orchestrate all of our Internet of Things. And there's more beyond that. Virtual reality, augmented reality is just an intermediate step, right? I'll tell you what's, most people aren't ready to hear this, but this one's already in advanced stages in many laboratories, and there's a number of startups working on it. You'll be able to think all these things. And again, if we don't have the agents, if you haven't been investing in the agent technology, in AI, in machine learning, you won't be ready for this when it comes. Now this is farther out. This could be 10 years, right? But now it's increasingly looking to be 5 years. I'm about to add it to my 3-year watch list if I keep seeing things that are ready to go to market for this, right? Health tech devices are going to be the first for this, by the way. Cost point is dropping dramatically. Right now it's still expensive and still very bulky. They're going to change. But the IoT apps keep coming and coming. And this is fragmentation problem. This is why to be a network orchestrator is to say, I'm not going to be committed to just one product line. Like Philips makes all these great connected devices, but those devices are often a lot better when combined with other devices. That was an example of, well, I want my connected power meter and my connected thermostat. I need data from both of them, different manufacturers, so to be able to make smart decisions and save power, right? So this is where if you're just focused on being on an individual line of IoT, you're going to miss the big advantage. You're going to miss the big market opportunity, which is putting these things together and then making that experience more seamless and lightweight. But we've had another reminder too recently. You may have heard about this, very hot topic in the tech industry, and that's Slack. Now it's a real-time communications tool, but they are also one of the big proof points that bots are going to be a big thing in terms of giving us the leverage over a lot more technology than we could have before, right? This is what Facebook is realizing. We can create and offer so much more value if we can give people intelligent agents to talk with, right? And so maybe graphical user interfaces are not the best way of doing this, right? And we've learned this in the rest of the communications world too. Communications getting super lightweight. Things like WhatsApp has pushed SMS, basically out of the industry. However, even the command line was too much. Slack is a command line communications tool. It's very powerful, has a lot of high leverage, but its big thing is this. This is from a Wired article I really like. Slack is overrun with bots, friendly, wonderful bots. And I use Slack quite a bit now because of the darn bots. For example, I can go to my calendar bot going, hey, I want a meeting with these 2 people, but I see their calendars are busy for the next 2 weeks. Could you work with them and see if they have an opening, schedule everything on our calendars and take care of it? And 10 minutes later, I get a note from the bot going, done. And I see a calendar notice appearing on my calendar. And it also reminds me relentlessly about all sorts of things I should be doing that are on my calendar as well. So again, we're seeing this now, these new high leverage methods of engagement. They're called conversational user experiences. And they're the future of all sorts of digital technology, but I think they're going to unleash the value that we see in the Internet of Things. So we're going to engage with smart everything soon. You've heard this here and you may be familiar with it, but you're going to see it everywhere. Everything's going to offer a smart agent for all sorts of things across all these different channels, right? So web pages and chat, email, our activity streams and our social tools, smart agents like Siri and Cortana, mobile applications, virtual reality, and so on. And we're going to be able to use just regular language, regular gestures, natural language processing will work. It'll talk back to us in our own language, whatever we want that to be, right? And it'll be using, of course, connected to all our devices and the cloud. And those who put it higher up in the stack, right? So, like Philips will almost certainly offer these types of user interfaces for all of its connected devices. But again, the value is one step above to say, all right, can I create a solution that combines everything I have in my home or everything I have in a certain part of my business? Like I'm going to take everything I have in customer support. I'm going to enable that. Be able to watch my customers' devices and be able to say, hey, you have a water leak in your basement. That's one of the newest Internet of Things devices I just got. It's called the Notion. I can drop these little hockey pucks that run for several years without being plugged in. I can put them on the floor of my basement, or I can put them on a windowsill. I know every time my children open and close the window, I get a little background notification. But all these things are much more valuable in combination, and they're much more valuable when we have extremely easy access. So this is what you'll be seeing quite a bit. So bots will find their way relentlessly into our conversation and into our lives. This is a chatbot from it's a medical chatbot that'll actually diagnose your problems, and it uses some humor along the way as well. They will teach us. Educational chatbots are a big thing too, because you can very easily create a persona around them. By the way, personalities are a big deal. You'll be able to choose the personality that you want to use. This is like what was that Matthew Mahoney movie where he traveled to the black hole and he had to dial down that robot's sense of humor. Same type of thing here. They will do all these wonderful things with us, for us, keep us company, help us shop. Here's some great examples over here. But I want to show that chatbots there are now hundreds of companies making these things. And by creating a marriage between these two worlds, we're going to be able to do wonderful things. They'll even be our friends. They'll strategically advise us. IBM has wrapped a bot interface around Watson, and you'll be able to ask it all sorts of questions about all the business knowledge that's out there in the world. And instead of you having to dig through it and trying to compile it all together from like searching Google, you're just going to be able to ask Watson. Actually, you're not going to be able to. You can do this now. This is an actual screenshot from the application. And they will be, therefore, on the front line of Internet of Things. I think this new advance in user experience is going to be the breakthrough that's going to take us for a while until we hit the next obstacle, whatever that is. So do you need a bot strategy for your IoT, your Internet of Things? Yes, would be my short answer. You have to start thinking about it. You have to start figuring it out. Newer platforms will have them built in. You're going to see them added to all of our operating systems. They actually have kind of snuck in because they're already on all of our mobile devices, right, as one of the primary user interfaces. And now we're seeing them in other platforms, and we're going to see the older platforms like some of our desktop operating systems. We'll be getting them next and more robustly. The benefits are still tactical for internal facing. They're going to be useful, but the strategic value is in offering it to the market. Your business being able to package these up and creating the most frictionless interface possible to the services high enough in the stack that you can use those combinations, right? The combinatorics of all those devices to be able to provide real insight. That's where things like I think IBM Watson is an advantage in that they're already situated high up in that strategic level of the stack and can start exposing this to customers saying, Watson can ask you, can I access all of your Internet of Things data? Great, thank you. Let me think about it for a second. Okay, what question would you like to ask, right? Like how can I make my business more operationally efficient? From an energy perspective, from a logistics perspective, whatever, all that data would now exist, right? From all of your different vehicles, all your facilities, all of your connected devices. So it's a very exciting time. So I am very excited about the potential of digital technology. I think we do have to watch, where this is going to take us. Things like smart dust is, very interesting, but I think it can cut two ways. But I do think we now have kind of the building blocks out there to combine these together. This, I believe, is self-evident to many of the people that are in the IoT space, by the way. The HomeKit, Apple saw that very clearly and did that. But it's going to be up to us to make sure that we, in our IoT product designs, or as we're designing solutions for our business to use off-the-shelf IoT products, that we're thinking about all this. Make it easier, will not be used, right? Reduce the friction, make the engagement better, put machine learning and AI in that process to do greater things. Question. Yeah, so the question is this. So the wonder of the internet was that it's based on open standards, HTTP to transmit information around, and HTML so we could have a visual representation of it, and search engines, which allowed us to find anything on any corner of the internet. We had one simple, single flat structure. Am I paraphrasing you correctly here, sir? So now we're going to see that we're seeing this commercial ecosystem emerging of ecosystems. All these different individual vendors are going to create their own IoT clouds, some of them with their own hubs and own standards. We're going to see this terrible fragmentation. They're going to want to hoard all this together. Yeah, totally that's going to happen. No doubt about it, it is happening. And it's going to be a challenge. Now, as businesses, we tend to learn, though, is that the more closed off we make our products, the less likely we're going to get all the wonderful things that happen when you open them up, right? Which is people build all these applications and all these solutions on top of it that can connect your data. So open APIs was the big advance. There's 12,000 now open APIs out there on top of products. It's growing exponentially. So we finally learned that lesson. But will we still see this kind of behavior, this kind of wanting to control everything and not necessarily open up everything all the way? Yes, it's going to be an ongoing challenge. And again, why the biggest IoT providers will be probably the least open, right? Because they're already in the #1 position. Why would they need to open up and risk perhaps people being able to migrate off of them, but because they can pull all their data out and go somewhere else, right? So yeah, we're going to have all of the same issues. But the internet tends to penalize those who close things off. That tends to. You can sometimes get away with it, but in general, if you look at who the winners are, they're relatively open. So I hope not. I hope not. But we're going to have to all guard against that, and it's up to you to make sure that you want open, standardized products. Yes, another question.
What product did you say was going to replace SMS?
The question is, what product did I say will replace? No, has replaced effectively SMS is WhatsApp. WhatsApp, yes. If you haven't, all these things are so amazing, they're so huge and no one's ever heard of them. But WhatsApp is actually owned by Facebook now, has about 700 million users. So,
It's, this is what happens when Dion speaks. There's probably 150 questions in the audience, and everyone is encouraged to please talk to him once his presentation is over, and he will be here. And everything that you can possibly think of, I think he can answer.
Yep.
So go ahead and finish.
All right, thank you very much. I'll be around. I appreciate it.